I have to get information first. I'm gonna get to know him, and when I realize his motive, I'll be the mother that stops that.
I don't even know how to respond because there's more to my romantic history with Michael than what I
never saw it coming, and neither did we. 1 minute, Birkan is sitting across from Laura and Michael, trying to play it cool, and the next, the air in the room turns electric as the truth slips out. Raw and undeniable, Laura's past with Michael isn't just a footnote. It's the headline. And Birkan's face says it all. The shock hits him like a punch. His eyes dart from Laura to Michael, searching for some sign that this is all a bad joke. But there's no laughter. Only the heavy silence of secrets finally clawing their way to the surface. And for a split second, you can almost hear Laura's heart pounding, her hands fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve, her voice caught somewhere between confession and denial, while Michael, usually the smooth talker, suddenly looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. His gaze fixed on the floor, his jaw clenched, as if he's bracing for impact. And in that moment, the whole dynamic shifts. Trust isn't just cracked. It's dangling by a thread, and you can feel the betrayal simmering just beneath Birkan's skin. Because this isn't about a harmless crush or a forgotten flirtation. This is about the one thing Birkan thought he could count on, honesty, and now even that feels like a lie. Welcome to Reality Sport. I'm Aliva, and if you're as stunned as Birkan right now, hit that subscribe button and drop your wildest theory in the comments, because this story is about to get messier than a 90-day fiancé tell-all. And trust me, you won't want to miss a second. Birkan's mind is racing. Every memory with Laura suddenly up for review. Every late-night conversation, every inside joke, every time she swore there was nothing between her and Michael, and now all those reassurances feel hollow, like a script she memorized just to keep him in the dark. And you can see the questions forming behind his eyes. Was he ever the first choice? Or has he always been the backup plan, the safe bet, the one she settled for when Michael didn't step up? And as Laura tries to explain, her words stumble over each other, half-truths and excuses tumbling out. But Birkan isn't hearing any of it. Not really. Because the trust they built is slipping through his fingers. And the more she talks, the more he wonders what else she's hiding. What other secrets are waiting to explode, and Michael, caught in the crossfire, tries to shrink into the background. But there's no escaping the spotlight now, not when Birkan's glare is burning a hole through him, and every awkward pause feels like another accusation. The stakes have never been higher, because this isn't just about a secret. It's about the foundation of their relationship. And if Laura could hide something this big, what's stopping her from hiding more? And if Michael was willing to keep quiet, what does that say about his loyalty? And suddenly, every interaction feels loaded, every word a potential landmine, and Birkan is left wondering if he's fighting for a relationship that never really existed, or if he's just the last to know in a story that's been playing out behind his back for months, maybe years, and as the tension thickens, you can almost feel the walls closing in. Because once trust is broken, it's not just the relationship that's at risk, it's Birkan's sense of self, his pride, his ability to believe in anything Laura says from this point on, and the worst part is, he can't shake the feeling that this is only the beginning, that there's more to this story than anyone is willing to admit. And the only way to find out is to keep digging, even if it means tearing everything apart. If you think this is wild, wait until you see what happens when Birkan decides he's done playing nice and starts demanding answers. Because the next move could change everything, and nobody is safe from the fallout. It didn't start with a bang, but with 1,000 tiny cracks that nobody noticed until the whole thing was ready to shatter. Because in the days before the truth came out, the apartment felt less like a home and more like a pressure cooker. Every glance, every word, every sigh loaded with meaning, and Birkan, who once prided himself on being chill, found himself watching Laura and Michael like a detective who's just realized the case is personal. He'd catch Laura glancing at her phone, her smile fading the second she saw him looking, or Michael lingering in the kitchen a little too long, offering to help with dinner, cracking jokes that landed flat, and every time Birkan tried to brush it off, another little moment would stick in his mind. Laura laughing a little too hard at Michael's stories, Michael always knowing exactly how Laura liked her coffee. And suddenly, the things that used to feel harmless started to look suspicious, like puzzle pieces that didn't quite fit, and Birkan couldn't decide if he was seeing ghosts or finally waking up. The tension was thick enough to taste, and nobody wanted to be the first to break the silence, so instead, they filled the air with passive-aggressive comments, Laura asking if Birkan was jealous again, Michael joking about third-wheeling, and Birkan firing back with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, and when they all sat down for dinner, the conversation would circle around safe topics, but every now and then, someone would slip. A story from the past, a shared memory that didn't include Birkan. And the room would go quiet, forks scraping plates, eyes darting, and Birkan would feel the urge to say something, to call it out, but he'd swallow it down, not wanting to look insecure, not wanting to give Laura or Michael the satisfaction of knowing they'd gotten under his skin, but the more he tried to play it cool, the more obvious it became that something was off. And Laura, usually so open, started to close herself off, her answers getting shorter, her laughter sounding forced, and Michael, sensing the shift, tried to smooth things over, cracking jokes, offering to run errands, but even his efforts felt like a performance, like he was trying to distract Birkan from asking the real questions. Inside, Birkan was at war with himself. One part of him screaming that he was being paranoid, that he was reading too much into every look, every word, but another part whispering that he was right, that people don't act this way unless they have something to hide, and every time he tried to trust Laura, to believe her when she said there was nothing going on, he'd remember the way she looked at Michael when she thought nobody was watching, or the way Michael would go quiet whenever Birkan walked into the room, and it started to eat at him, the doubt growing louder, drowning out everything else, until he couldn't tell if he was protecting himself or sabotaging his own happiness, and the worst part was, he couldn't talk to anyone about it. Not without sounding crazy, not without risking everything, so he kept it all inside, letting the suspicion fester, waiting for proof. For something concrete, but knowing deep down that even if he found it, it might already be too late. Birkan couldn't sleep. Not really. Not with the questions swirling in his head and the feeling that he was the only one in the dark. So when the sun finally crept through the curtains, he made up his mind. He wasn't going to tiptoe around the elephant in the room anymore. He found Michael alone in the living room, scrolling through his phone, pretending not to notice the tension that had been building for days. Birkan didn't bother with small talk. He sat down across from Michael, his eyes locked in, and for a moment, neither of them said a word. The silence was heavy, but Birkan wasn't backing down. He started with the question that had been eating at him. How long have you and Laura really known each other? Michael looked up, caught off guard, but tried to play it cool, answering with a shrug. About 1.5 years. Birkan pressed on, his voice tight, and in all that time, nothing ever happened between you two? Not even once? Michael hesitated. And that pause was all Birkan needed to know that the story wasn't as simple as Laura had made it out to be. Michael finally spoke, his words careful, measured, like he was picking his way through a minefield. He admitted that, yes, there had been a moment, a time before Laura met Birkan, when things between them almost crossed the line. He said it was a mistake, that they both realized it wouldn't work, that they decided to stay friends. But Birkan wasn't satisfied. He wanted details. He wanted to know who made the first move, who pulled away, and why. Michael shifted in his seat, his confidence slipping, and admitted that Laura had been the one to make a move. But he turned her down, not because he didn't care about her, but because he didn't want to risk their friendship. Birkan's jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists, and for a second, he looked like he might explode. But instead, he let out a shaky breath and asked the question that mattered most. Are you in love with her? Michael shook his head, insisting that he wasn't, that he valued their friendship, that he respected Birkan and would never try to come between them. But Birkan wasn't sure he believed him. Not with the way Michael looked at Laura, not with the way Laura seemed to light up whenever Michael was around. The conversation turned sharp, Birkan's questions coming faster, his voice rising with each one. He wanted to know why Michael never told him about the past, why he let Laura keep it a secret, why he was always around, always so close. Michael tried to defend himself, saying it wasn't his place to share Laura's secrets, that he was trying to respect her boundaries. But Birkan wasn't having it. He accused Michael of hiding behind friendship, of playing the nice guy while waiting for his chance, and Michael pushed back, saying Birkan was being paranoid, that he was letting his jealousy ruin everything. The argument escalated, voices raised, accusations flying, and for a moment, it looked like things might get physical. But then Birkan's anger cracked, and underneath it was something raw, something vulnerable. He admitted that he was scared of losing Laura, scared of being made a fool, scared that he was always going to be second best. Michael softened, his own defenses dropping, and he told Birkan that he understood, that he'd been in his shoes before, that jealousy can eat you alive if you let it. He promised again that he wasn't in love with Laura, that he wanted them both to be happy, but Birkan wasn't sure he could trust him, not after everything that had come out. The conversation slowed, the anger giving way to exhaustion, and for a moment they just sat there, two men caught in a mess neither of them wanted. Birkan asked one last question, his voice barely above a whisper. If Laura asked you to be with her, would you say yes? Michael hesitated, then shook his head, saying he wouldn't, that he'd already made his choice, that he wanted to move forward, not backward. But Birkan could see the doubt in his eyes, the way he looked away, and it only made the knot in his stomach tighter. The confrontation left both men shaken, the air between them thick with things unsaid. Birkan wanted to believe Michael, wanted to trust that his fears were unfounded. But the seeds of doubt had already taken root. Every answer Michael gave seemed to open up new questions, new possibilities, and Birkan couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something, that there was more to the story than either of them was willing to admit. He wondered if Laura was watching from the other room, listening to every word, planning her next move. He wondered if Michael was telling the truth, or if he was just a better liar than Birkan gave him credit for. And most of all, he wondered if he was fighting a battle he'd already lost, if the real betrayal had happened long before he ever walked into the room. Birkan didn't wait long. The second Michael left the room, he turned to Laura, his face still flushed from the confrontation, his voice low but shaking with the weight of everything he'd just heard. Laura looked up, sensing the storm before he even spoke, her eyes wide, her hands frozen mid-text, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Birkan broke the silence first, asking her straight out if there was anything she wanted to tell him, anything she'd been keeping from him about her past with Michael. Laura's lips parted, but no words came out, and the pause stretched between them, thick with all the things she'd never said. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost pleading, as she insisted that it was nothing, that it was ancient history, that she never meant to hurt him. But Birkan wasn't satisfied with half-truths, not after everything he'd just heard from Michael, and he pressed her, his questions coming faster, his tone sharper, demanding to know why she'd lied, why she'd let him believe there was nothing between her and Michael when clearly there was. Laura's defenses went up, her words tumbling out in a rush, blaming the situation, the timing, saying she didn't want to make things awkward, that she was trying to protect Birkan from unnecessary pain. She insisted that Michael meant nothing to her now, that whatever happened was over before it began. But Birkan could hear the cracks in her story, the way her voice wavered, the way she wouldn't meet his eyes. He reminded her of all the times she'd promised to be honest, all the times she'd sworn there were no secrets between them, and asked her how he was supposed to trust her now, how he was supposed to believe anything she said when she'd been hiding something this big. Laura's eyes filled with tears, her voice breaking as she tried to explain, saying she was scared of losing him, scared of ruining what they had, scared that if he knew the truth, He'd never look at her the same way again. The emotional stakes couldn't be higher. Laura was caught between two men, terrified of losing both, while Birkan was left questioning everything, wondering if he was just the consolation prize, the safe choice after Michael turned her down. He asked her point blank if she ever loved Michael, if she ever wished things had worked out differently, and Laura hesitated, her silence louder than any answer. She finally admitted that there was a time when she thought she might have feelings for Michael, but insisted that it was over, that she chose Birkan, that she wanted to build a future with him. But Birkan wasn't sure he could believe her. Not after all the lies, not after all the secrets, and he told her as much. His voice raw, his eyes shining with hurt. He reminded her of the promises they made, the plans they'd built, the trust they'd worked so hard to create, and asked her how he was supposed to move forward when the foundation of their relationship felt so shaky. Laura tried to reach for him, her hands trembling, but Birkan pulled away, his walls going up as he struggled to process everything. He asked her if there was anything else she was hiding, anything else he needed to know, and Laura shook her head, insisting that this was it, that there were no more secrets. But Birkan could feel the doubt creeping in, the fear that he was missing something, that there was still more to the story. He told her he needed time, that he couldn't just pretend everything was fine, that he needed to figure out if he could ever trust her again. Laura's tears fell harder, her voice barely a whisper as she begged him not to give up on them, not to let one mistake ruin everything they'd built, but Birkan was already pulling away, his heart heavy with disappointment, his mind racing with questions. Their history flashed before his eyes, all the good times, the laughter, the late-night talks, the promises they made to always be honest, always be there for each other, and now, all of that felt like it was slipping away, replaced by doubt and suspicion. Birkan wondered if he'd ever be able to look at Laura the same way, if he'd ever be able to trust her again, or if this was the beginning of the end. Laura, for her part, was desperate to hold on, desperate to prove that she was telling the truth, that she loved him, that she wanted to make things right. But the damage was done, and neither of them knew how to fix it. The apartment feels colder now, like someone opened a window and let all the warmth escape, and Birkan can't shake the feeling that he's standing in the ruins of something he thought was solid. He paces the hallway, replaying every word Laura said, every tear she shed, but nothing adds up. Nothing feels real anymore. His trust isn't just cracked, it's shattered, and every time he looks at Laura, he sees a stranger, someone who could lie to his face and still ask for forgiveness. Laura sits on the edge of the bed, her hands pressed to her face, her mind spinning with regret and fear, wondering if she's lost everything in a single night. She wants to reach out, to fix what's broken, but every time she tries, Birkan pulls further away, his silence louder than any argument. Michael, meanwhile, is stuck in the middle, caught between guilt and frustration, wishing he'd spoken up sooner, wishing he could disappear, but knowing he can't walk away without making things worse. Anger simmers beneath the surface for Birkan, a slow burn that flares every time he remembers Laura's hesitation, her half-answers, the way she tried to protect herself instead of their relationship. He wants to yell, to demand answers, but he's too tired, too hurt, so he shuts down instead, locking himself in his own thoughts, replaying every moment they shared and wondering how much of it was real. Laura's sadness is a heavy weight, pressing down on her chest, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. She scrolls through old photos, desperate for a reminder of happier times, but every smile feels fake now, every memory tainted by the secret she kept. She tries to write a message to Birkan to explain herself one more time, but the words won't come, and she deletes it before she can hit send. Michael's confusion is almost palpable. He never wanted to be the villain, never wanted to come between Laura and Birkan, but now he's the reason everything is falling apart. He tries to give them space to stay out of the way, but every time he hears raised voices or sees Laura crying, the guilt gnaws at him. He wonders if he should leave, if his presence is making things worse, but he's afraid that leaving will only confirm Birkan's worst fears. He sits alone in the living room, staring at the wall, wishing he could turn back time, wishing he could undo the damage. Outside the apartment, the drama spills onto social media. Friends and family start to notice the tension, the cryptic posts, the sudden silence from Laura and Birkan. Laura's sister sends her a worried message, asking if everything is okay, while Birkan's best friend texts him late at night, offering to come over, to talk, to distract him from the mess. The group chat lights up with speculation, everyone trying to piece together what happened, everyone picking sides. Some blame Laura for keeping secrets, others say Birkan is overreacting, and a few wonder if Michael was ever really just a friend. The confessional moments come fast and raw, with Laura recording a tearful voice memo she never sends, and Birkan typing out a long post about trust and betrayal before deleting it, not ready to share his pain with the world. The emotional fallout is everywhere, in every room, every message, every awkward silence. Laura tries to hold on, tries to remind Birkan of the love they shared, but he's not ready to listen, not ready to forgive. He spends more time out of the apartment, crashing on a friend's couch, avoiding Laura's calls, trying to find some clarity in the chaos. Laura, left alone, replays every conversation, every decision, wondering where she went wrong, wondering if she can ever make things right. Michael, feeling more like an outsider than ever, starts packing his things, ready to give them the space they need, but unsure if leaving is the answer. The question hangs in the air, heavy and unanswered. Is this the end for Birkan and Laura, or can trust be rebuilt from the ashes? Can a relationship survive this kind of betrayal, or is it doomed to fall apart under the weight of secrets and lies? The stakes have never been higher, and every move they make from here on out will decide their future. Laura sits in the quiet, her mind racing. The sting of betrayal still fresh, but now tangled with something else. A creeping suspicion that maybe she's not the only one with secrets. She watches Birkan move through the apartment, distant and distracted, and for the first time, she wonders if his anger is hiding something deeper. The next morning, when Birkan finally comes home after another night away, Laura doesn't wait for him to start the conversation. She meets him at the door, her voice steady but her eyes searching, and asks him point blank if he's ever kept anything from her. Birkan freezes, caught off guard, and for a moment, the roles are reversed. Now it's Laura demanding answers, and Birkan struggling to find the right words. He tries to brush it off, saying he's always been honest, but Laura doesn't let him off the hook. She brings up the rumors she's heard, whispers about debts, about late-night gambling, about exes who still message him when she's not around. She asks him why he never told her about the money he owes, why he always gets defensive when she asks about his past, why he disappears for hours without explanation. Birkan's face hardens, his jaw set. But Laura keeps pushing, her frustration boiling over. She tells him that trust goes both ways, that she's not the only one who's made mistakes, and that if he wants to rebuild what they had, he needs to come clean. Birkan's defenses crumble, and for the first time, he admits the truth. He tells Laura about the debts he's been hiding, about the nights he spent at the casino trying to win it all back, about the friends he owes money to, and the shame that kept him silent. He confesses that he was afraid to tell her, afraid she'd see him as a failure, afraid she'd leave him if she knew the truth. Laura listens, her anger fading into sadness, and she realizes that Birkan's need for control, his jealousy, his constant suspicion, all stem from his own guilt and insecurity. She asks him if he ever projected his fears onto her, if his accusations about Michael were really about his own secrets, and Birkan can't deny it. He admits that he was scared, that he lashed out because he didn't know how to ask for help, that he pushed her away because he didn't want her to see how lost he felt. The tables have turned, and now both of them are exposed, their flaws laid bare. Laura tells Birkan how much it hurt to be accused, how lonely she felt when he shut her out, how hard she tried to hold everything together while he was busy hiding from his own problems. She tells him that she's tired of being the only one fighting for their relationship, tired of carrying the weight of his expectations, tired of feeling like she's never enough. Birkan listens, his anger replaced by regret, and he apologizes for everything. For the lies, for the accusations, for making her feel small. He tells her that he loves her, that he wants to fix things, but Laura isn't sure it's enough. She tells him that love isn't enough without trust, that they can't move forward until they're both willing to be honest, to be vulnerable, to let go of the past. The emotional showdown is raw and unfiltered, both of them laying out their grievances, their fears, their hopes for the future. Laura admits that she still loves Birkan, but she's not sure she can forgive him, not sure she can trust him again. Birkan promises to do better, to be better, but Laura knows that promises are easy to make and hard to keep. She tells him that they need time, that they need space, that they need to figure out who they are without all the secrets and lies. Birkan agrees, but the pain in his eyes is clear. He's afraid that time apart will only push them further away. As they sit in the aftermath, both exhausted and uncertain, the question hangs between them. Who is the real villain here? Is it Laura, for hiding her past with Michael, for keeping secrets out of fear? Or is it Birkan, for projecting his own guilt, for letting his insecurities poison their relationship? Or maybe, just maybe, they're both to blame. Both victims of their own fears, both guilty of putting up walls instead of reaching out for help. The apartment is silent, but it's not the peaceful kind. It's the kind of silence that comes after a storm, when everything is soaked and broken, and you're left staring at the mess, wondering if anything can be saved. Laura and Birkan sit across from each other at the kitchen table, the same table where they once laughed over late-night snacks and whispered about the future. Now, the air is thick with everything they've said and everything they haven't, and both of them know there's no going back to the way things were. Michael is gone, his suitcase packed, his presence lingering like a shadow in every room. It's just the two of them now, and there's nowhere left to hide. Birkan is the first to speak, his voice rough, his eyes tired. He says he's done pretending, done holding back, and if they're going to have any chance at all, they need to put everything on the table. Laura nods, her hands shaking, but she doesn't look away. She says she's ready, even if it hurts, even if it means the end. For a moment, neither of them knows where to start. Then, Birkan takes a deep breath and begins, telling Laura everything he's kept hidden. The debts, the gambling, the shame, the fear that he'd never be enough for her. He admits that he let his insecurities drive a wedge between them, that he accused her of things because he was afraid of being left behind, that he pushed her away because he didn't know how to ask for help. Laura listens, tears streaming down her face, and when Birkan finishes, she tells him her side. She admits that she was wrong to keep her past with Michael a secret, that she was scared of losing Birkan, scared of ruining what they had, scared that the truth would make him see her differently. She says she never meant to hurt him, that she never wanted to betray his trust, but she knows that's exactly what she did. She tells him about the nights she lay awake, wondering if she was enough, wondering if he'd ever let her in, wondering if they were both just pretending to be happy while everything was falling apart. The words come fast now, both of them desperate to be heard, desperate to explain, desperate to find some way back to each other. They talk about the good times, the laughter, the dreams they shared, and the promises they made. They talk about the fights, the jealousy, the secrets, and the pain. They talk about Michael, about how his presence brought out the worst in both of them, about how easy it was to blame him for their problems instead of facing the truth. They talk about the future, about whether there even is one, about what it would take to rebuild the trust they've lost. Birkan apologizes, his voice breaking, and Laura forgives him. But she doesn't let him off the hook. She tells him that forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, that trust has to be earned, that they both have work to do if they want to move forward. Birkan nods, wiping his eyes, and promises to do better, to be better, to let her in instead of shutting her out. Laura promises to be honest, to stop hiding, to trust him even when it's hard. For the first time in weeks, they reach for each other, their hands meeting across the table, and for a moment it feels like maybe, just maybe, they can find their way back. but the wounds are still fresh, and the road ahead is long. They both know that one conversation isn't enough to fix everything, that trust isn't rebuilt overnight, that love alone can't solve every problem. They agree to take things slow, to give each other space, to go to therapy, to work on themselves as individuals and as a couple. They set boundaries, promising to be honest about their feelings, to check in with each other, to ask for help when they need it. They talk about what they want, what they need, what they're afraid of, and for the first time, it feels like they're on the same team instead of fighting against each other. The emotional climax leaves them both drained, but also lighter, as if letting go of the secrets has made room for something new. There are tears, there are apologies, there are moments of silence where words aren't enough, but there's also hope. A fragile, tentative hope that maybe they can build something stronger from the ashes. They know it won't be easy, that there will be setbacks, that old wounds will take time to heal, but they're willing to try, willing to fight for each other, willing to believe that trust can be rebuilt if they're both willing to do the work. For anyone watching, it's a reminder that relationships aren't about perfection, but about honesty, vulnerability, and the willingness to face the hard truths together. It's about setting boundaries, about asking for what you need, about being willing to forgive, but also holding each other accountable. It's about recognizing your own flaws, your own fears, your own role in the problems you face, and being brave enough to do better. If you've ever found yourself in a situation like Laura and Birkan, know that you're not alone, and that it's never too late to start over, to be honest, to ask for help, to fight for what matters. As the night wears on, Laura and Birkan sit together in the quiet, their hands still joined, their hearts still bruised but beating in sync. They don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, they're facing it together with open eyes and open hearts. The apartment is still, the storm has passed, and in the silence, there's a sense of possibility. A sense that maybe, just maybe, this isn't the end, but a new beginning. But as they settle into this uneasy peace, new questions linger in the air. Can they really move past the hurt? Or will old wounds resurface when they least expect it? Will Michael stay out of their lives? Or is there another twist waiting just around the corner? And what happens when trust is tested again? When the next secret threatens to break them apart? The answers aren't clear, and the story is far from over. If you thought this was the final chapter, think again, because next time, a new face enters the picture and shakes up everything Laura and Birkan thought they'd rebuilt. You won't believe who shows up at their door, and what they bring with them could change everything. So don't miss what happens next, right here on Reality Sport.